Hi, everyone. This is Reverend Kenneth Price, and this is Wednesday, October 15th, and I am here with Sue, and this is weekly Real Talk. And I host these every Wednesday, very informally, for students, Course in Miracles students in our ACIM community who want to talk about the real, the nitty gritty parts about waking up out of the dream, the nitty gritty parts about oh, I don't know, Sue, help me out. What's it like to be an ACIM student practitioner and have to face our shadow and have to unwind our beliefs and then have to appear normal in the world? It's quite the assignment. So I host these every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and we record these. And because these are valuable conversations, we we don't just talk about metaphysics here. This is practical application. What's it really like for us? And basically, because I'm a minister or a commissioned minister with Living Church Ministries, which is David Hoffmeister's umbrella, because you see behind me footprints in the sand. It's when two or more are gathered. So there's three of us in the Zoom call this evening. There's Kenneth and there's Sue, and you know who the third party is. So Sue, how you doing this week? Sue's without a camera this week, which is fine. We're just gonna see which direction it's supposed to go in. So how are you, Sue? It's good to well not see you. It's good to hear you.
Well, bring my authentic self to the
Well,
station.
you are kind of a white silhouette on a background, but that doesn't matter.
Is that what you're seeing? What are you seeing?
I see a black screen with a little white silhouette. You'll see it on the YouTube
Oh,
archive. I'm just laughing. We gotta lighten
what?
up. I gotta lighten up around here. I can't speak for anybody else.
I like that because in some of the other groups, they'll say you're not your name, that your name is your ego personality. Well, then the same is true. There's a lesson in the workbook of the Course in Miracles that says, I am not a body. I don't have a body. I am free. So I don't have a body. That's why I'm just pure light. I am light. I am love. I am a reflection of God's creation. I'm a child of God. So I don't have a form and a shape. In my right mind, in my one-mindedness, that's the truth, right?
Well, if I don't have a body, then I guess I don't need to get up and go to work tomorrow, do I? I
You
let's face it. I mean, yeah, at the advanced level metaphysically, these are truths, but that's why it's real talk. Let's.
yeah.
What's it like to try and be in the world and not of it? Oh, I'm going to be in the world and not of it. Oh, is that all? Well, that's going to be the assignment for the rest of our lives. So,
Yeah.
um, that's why I want to unpack this because, when we're new on the path, these are great slogans, and metaphysically at the highest rungs of the ladder, that's what Jesus is telling us. But remember, he had to spend 1,400 pages to deliver this, very gently to us. And then he
Mhm.
left it for us to fill in the blanks. That's why I love Kenneth Wapnick. Kenneth Wapnick says, just be normal. He said, just be normal. Well, how do you do that? Well, let's get together and talk about how we're doing that because
Well,
I want to learn from you as well.
yeah, let's stop and ask the question immediately arises, what is normal? Wait a minute, I'm thinking of the world and what is normal, and it's like, but I'm recovering normal. I'm I'm seeking no, seek and do not find in that world. I'm me. I'm what am I? I'm God. I'm stripping away the appearances of normal, the trying to fit into normal, a normal family which was abnormal, normal classroom which was, if there's a judgment, it was abnormal. What's normal? Be like the majority of
Well,
people, but what if they're all insane? Be like that?
you know, I, I get up and go to work every morning, and I just watch my mind all day long. I don't tell anybody I'm a Course in Miracles student practitioner unless they ask. And all day
Mm.
long, Sue, I get my buttons pushed. All day long, I get, and I love what I do. I work in construction, but, nobody around me, they all believe it's real. And they just kind of think, oh, he's just kind of a quiet guy. Well, but yeah, on the outside, on the inside, my mind is going, let's see, unbelieve
Mm.
that thought. I'll walk away from that belief. Here comes another one. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Let it pass. Let it all day long. That's what it looks like in mine. And people on the
Mm.
outside, they wouldn't see anything going on. He's just under the house, welding pipes.
Uh-huh.
So this is what it looks like. Just say, there's that crazy mad voice inside of my head screaming at me, because this weld didn't take, or I forgot to bring the flux down under the house. It's quite an assignment, because this is what happens in my story. So I can't project any of this stuff anymore.
Uh-huh.
I can't say it's about the Lowe's delivery. I can't say it's about the client. I certainly can't blame the house, although I still do. I have to take
Mm.
full responsibility for everything I'm thinking and believing. Now that's real
Mm.
talk. What is that's where the real work begins.
That's
And
real.
and, and trust me, it's real. And it's much better to live this way, because there's no drama. And actually, I get to love those who I'm around. Not, I don't give them heart emojis, obviously. I'm working on a construction site. But love is simply, giving somebody my full attention and my presence, without
Mm.
baggage.
Mm.
That's what they need on this job site. They just need me,
Right.
and I show up fully.
Cool.
So
That's
I
cool.
think that's what he means by, being normal. How
Oh.
many times have we showed up to a job, and no one proselytizes to us, but someone just gives us their presence, and that has made a difference in our day.
Mm.
I think that's what Kenneth Wapnick, and is really
Oh.
pointing towards for us as ACIM students and practitioners,
Okay. That.
because everyone else is stressing, deadline schedules, mortgage payments, get the house rented. And I get to be the calming influence there. I wasn't always like that. When I
Mm.
believed in the world, I was batshit crazy and stressed out, and I was the one who needed, the love and support. But as we progress and evolve on this journey, we get to extend the love and support. I would prefer nobody know that I have the Reverend in front of my name. I would prefer it as I would rather they not. It
Mhm.
actually, just consider me one of you. I'm sorry I cut you off. Well, first of all, it's Living Church Ministries. I'm only an ordained minister. I didn't go through seminary, but I did bust my ass, and
Mhm.
to prove to David, that I could, that this is the direction that my life was going. Um, I think, Sue, we're all ministers. I
There
think
you.
we all have a ministry. And I think the ego would like to say, this person, has, a piece of paper from this religion. I truly, isn't that what Jesus is trying to tell us in A Course in Miracles? We're all students, we're all teachers.
I
And
think so.
to stop all this, pieces of paper, I,
Mhm.
I wouldn't doubt, I bet seminary is great. As a matter of fact, that would be a very admirable, vocation. But let's bring it back to real talk. You know,
Mhm. Right. We're either we all get to have have a title,
I
or
know.
none of us has a title.
Well, kind of, poked at me. Some people are putting the title Reverend after their name. I got a poke. Um,
Mm.
but okay, so let's bring it back. Um, I've been joining with Ricky Como for almost 2 years now, but I've known her, for 7. And she said something to me very that I'll never forget back in 2020, I think it was 5 years ago. I was in a pretty, compromised place. So I said, Ricky, let's join. I really need some help here. And she listened and she made space for me. But at the end of listening, and probably a lot of storytelling, I told some stories. She looked at me in the eye and she said, "Who are you not to be a minister?" See, she
Mm.
turned it on me. She said, "Who?" She said, "What do you mean you're not ready to start?" She said, "You are ready to start." And
Mm.
that was when I started my first YouTube channel called Psychiatric Sobriety.
Oh,
And she was right. You know, if we wait until we're ready, we're never gonna get off the tarmac.
true. God, I think God decides when we're ready and he hands us something and we can be willing to get on board with it or not, right?
Well, one of the struggles I've had is my YouTube hits. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm only getting 50 YouTube hits, and Keith Kavanaugh's getting 8,000. Well, wait a minute. Again, listen to that crazy mad voice inside of my head talking to itself. You know, again, I would like to be a spiritual, no spiritual celebrity status for me. You know, it this has what I realized. This is I was talking to Ricky this morning. The basic premise is how does it make me feel when one person responds and says thank you, your message really helped me today. Just one person. That's the spirit saying, I'm going to give you that for today, to give you the encouragement to keep going and post the next message tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when I started to really get these teachings, things like words like hierarchy, one mind. If I'm really going to digest A Course in Miracles, Keith's not getting 8,000 hits. I am. Because if I can hear his message, it's one message, it's one mind. So we're both getting 8,000 hits. So
Ah, uh-huh. Oh, good. That's a good way to look at it, huh?
it
Yeah.
took years. It took into my late 50s before these. And that's the other thing I tell people. I say, wait, people are always, I'm not getting it. I should be further along. And I just kind of roll my eyes. Listen, the script is written. I wasn't supposed to get it until my late 50s. So, chill. Enjoy the dream. And if you're still dreaming, enjoy it. Don't.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
wake up now. Well, says who?
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, in the world of spirit, there is no time. So it happens when it happens, right?
Well, it's that, and it's also the suffering. Keith is finally really speaking to it. I'm so glad he is, because uh, there's been a lot of corrections in the course community and the conversations around suffering. We don't have to suffer. Well, no, we don't, but most of us do. And it's the suffering that woke me up. And because I have to practice this 24/7. I have to watch my thoughts all day long. So people say you go. I tell people I say you go from caterpillar, cocoon to butterfly to kind of keep it in simple parameters. But what I don't say is that once you're the butterfly, if you're not careful, you'll go back to caterpillar. Butterflies have to practice their mind training to keep flying, otherwise they'll fall. There's a topic of my next essay. If a caterpillar doesn't mind train, do they turn back into? If a butterfly doesn't do mind training, well, they revert back into the caterpillar. I'll do the essay
No.
tomorrow morning. I knew this was, when I knew that I was waking up out of the dream,
Uh,
when I started feeling love in my heart for my own father.
that's big. That's very big.
He's been gone for 20 years, and it doesn't matter. He's been living up here the whole time.
Right.
And, you know, that grievance, if it hadn't been for that grievance, I wouldn't even be on a spiritual path. It's that grievance that pushed me to
Yeah.
do all this work, to do all this seeking, to put all of this first. Because until I knew, as a young man, until I could find love in my heart for that man, that my life wasn't going to
Yeah.
begin.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and so if it took until my senior years, so be it. It gives me all these wonderful, this wonderful parable that I get to put into essays for others that are essays for people who feel lost, feel,
Yeah.
conflicted, feel like they're far behind. Good. I'll speak to that because
Yeah.
I went through all that. I like that you brought that up. Okay. Actually, I'm thrilled that you brought up because David was the first one. I met David. This whole thing really got serious when I met him back in May 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said the word contrast experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I've been building on that for over 8 years because he was right. Until I knew what hatred felt like, what
Mm-hmm.
bitterness, what revenge, could do to this one man's soul, I couldn't fully appreciate love, understanding, and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my parable, I needed to go down that far. I've called it like the slingshot effect. Remember, your slingshot, you have to pull that rubber band back
Mm-hmm.
real taut, real tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you let go,
Yeah.
and it's launched.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have this belief. I have a grievance. That's bad. I have a resentment. That's wrong. No, it's not. It's part of your highly individualized curriculum at this rung of the ladder. And we can go deep down the rabbit hole. Who's the one who's having the grievance? But I tell people, I say, let's not try and heal it. Let's just allow it and don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dynamic that is written into your script at this point in time. The old paradigm says it's wrong. We need to fix it. Well, that's where the holy ego gets born, and it keeps us even in spiritual work. It keeps us, trapped in a looping cycle. So that's why I love ACIM. Is it gets us off that looping cycle by saying, you know, giving us all the vocabulary and non-dual vocabulary to let the grievance. It's like John Lennon, let it be.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's my mother's favorite words to me was, Kenny, don't touch. Don't touch.
Mm,
Well, I mean, mothers always know best, don't they?
yeah.
The last two essays I've written on child abuse,
Yeah.
and I really needed to speak to it. No
Mm,
fault, no blame, but there's a reason I speak to it.
yeah.
My story contained some very powerful contrast experiences, and there's a reason it's taken me to my late 50s to find love
Mm,
in my heart for my father.
yeah.
You know, I can thank him now for that, but I would never tell a person, fresh, in therapy that, oh, you're going to thank your father someday for no. That's reserved. That's a very high level teaching that's taken me, my entire life to reach. But it is an ultimate truth. I mean, ultimately, our souls had this agreement together, and no fault, no blame. I only can imagine what his childhood was like, but
Yeah.
I did have to go through the feelings.
Yeah.
Now that is what I've been writing to in all the essays, not stories. And until I got to the feelings, the stories were endless. I
Mm,
told that story for more years than I need to count
mm,
because I was afraid of what would come out of me if I
mm,
stopped telling the story. Now,
mm,
I'm here to, this is why I get to, host this on Wednesdays, because where that led to was love and gratitude. But getting there, took all the king's horses and all the king's men.
mm, mm-hmm.
And we have a lot ACIM. People think the weapon can be the Bible can be weaponized. It's just the reptilian brain of human beings to avoid what we fear the most. And that's why I'm speaking to this, in the ACIM community, spiritual bypassing and metaphysical ghosting. We
Mm,
talked about it earlier. You know, oh, thank goodness you're not a body. Well, slow down with that teaching.
mm,
Uh, don't don't deflect or dismiss the pain I'm going through, because an ACM practitioner has a responsibility to hold the space for the person who's
uh,
telling the story and having the pain. I laugh at the ACIM community. We think we're so advanced. No, we're not. We're just fumbling through this with the rest of the world. We don't know what we're doing, but we're showing up. that too. Everyone, I've made it perfectly clear to the world my parable. That one of the reasons I started this ministry, one of the things that got this ministry started, I noticed, was the more transparent I became, the more I began to emerge from my own suffering.
Mm.
And when I started to share with the world, my parable of mental illness and addictions, all of a sudden that light behind me, you see, began to grow light, more and more brighter.
Mm-hmm.
And see, David Hoffmeister came, he said to all of us, I met him eight and a half years ago. He said, there's only two rules in my community. He said, no private thoughts and no people pleasing.
Ah.
Well, basically what he's saying, he said, you guys got to get transparent,
That,
and begin to purge the stuff that's lingering in the shadows. And that's, Jesus says, bring the darkness to the light. Oh no, people can't see that about me. Yes, they can.
mm,
Present, this is a gift. Your shadow, we think, or we've been taught the shadow is going to harm others. No, it won't. The
mm,
shadow presented to the light is a gift to the light. It's a gift to all of us.
mm,
And it takes this, only the ego is telling us that it's shameful and to keep it, stuffed down. That was
mm-hmm.
my mental illness. Those are my addictions, is I was ashamed of, I was ashamed of all that.
And you weren't able to look at it with care, correct? Or afraid that others couldn't look at it with care, correct?
Yeah. The more I started to get onto the formula, the metaphysics were essential. It wasn't real, so I had no reason to feel that shame. But there was a lot of condition. We all been conditioned. Don't. This is, you should. This is wrong and bad to hold a grievance. Therefore, I just became a spiritual. I
Mm.
put on a spiritual mask and said, "I'm not angry at my father." A very close friend of the family looked at me and she said, "Bullshit." And she
Uh-huh.
said, "You're pissed."
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading it energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when my anger was met with love, it demonstrated that it changed my world. When I was able to just, you know, get venomously, let that venom out, and someone held the space for me because they saw who I was under the venom. They knew it was just
Right.
a story that had to come out, like a
Right.
thorn that had to be pulled.
Right. Right.
Now that's what I've been writing about in my essays. I call that a wounded healer.
It's true. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see your spiritual mask, but I would love if you had the courage to show me, what you believe is the worst about you, and let me just love you until you discover that it just might not be true. I
Mm-hmm.
know it's not true, but when you make that discovery, it's 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 an awakening moment. It got to a critical mass in mine because I speak about it like it was a one-time deal, but it wasn't. It's been, progression over decades. But I finally got to a place where I realized there was nothing I could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
The shadow was coming up. I couldn't heal it. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't control it. And I finally, the awakening moment was, but I can surrender to it and
Mm-hmm.
allow it. I don't know how to love it. Do I put it on the, I've tried that. I went to all these spiritual communities and they all wanted to put light on me. We're gonna and do
Oh,
Reiki and, lay your hands on Kenneth. And that was, eventually loving it said, I surrender to it.
mm.
And it sort of created kind of like a relax. I was able to relax.
Yeah.
And in that space, the love has always been there. If I was just able to finally, Jesus was saying, can you let me have it? This isn't yours, Kenneth. Would you just let me drive this car?
Mm-hmm.
but we're taught in this culture that we need to do something with
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this case, it's not a doing anymore. David Hoffmeister, what was it? I mean, he's always saying, undo the doer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are things I need to do. I need to weld those pipes, and I need to frame that shower. But when it comes to this intrapersonal healing, that's where we have to. I didn't know how to turn it over. How do you? And then I turning it over into another doing. No, no, no. It's simply saying, like they taught us in the 12 steps. I can't. He can, and I think I'll let him.
That's it.
It behooved me for decades.
That's it. Let him. Let him. It's a surrender, isn't it? It's a surrender. It's a giving up. But
Not giving in.
not, yeah, okay. It's not quitting. That's different. Giving up and quitting are two different things, huh? Giving up, I surrender to what? Myself, to my shadow, or do I surrender to my light?
Well, you see, right there, I said at the beginning of the Zoom call, it's when two or more are gathered. You just unwound one of the nuances. You know, that's the nuance here. We don't give, we give up, but we don't give in. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
surrender is not a doing.
Mm.
We're walking a razor's edge
Yeah.
towards the light together. That's why I'm an ACIM student, because the metaphysics are so necessary for me, because taken fundamentally, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to take this apart, just little chunks at a time. I
Mm-hmm.
have to.
Well, they show up. Those are the triggers. The little chunks at a time are the triggers, aren't they? They're the things we thought we handled, like even a father wound. We think we handled it, and then it comes up. Something comes up in a relationship that reminds us of the issue, the wound, and which we thought we forgave. Then why is it still coming up?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just talking with Ricky this morning, and the same thing. I got triggered again. They often go take a walk. The crazy mad voice inside of your head is at it again. And
Mm,
you know, part of this path is also trust. I don't which teacher is it? I can't. I've got so many, but one of them pointed out to me, you've got to do this path and take the hand of Jesus, or whoever your loving figure is. Mine was my grandmother for most of my life, because
mm,
she was my loving figure. But I tried to do this path, secular, for more years than I'd like to share, and it does need it has a faith-based component. It
mm-hmm.
does.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
you know, and I had so many grievances towards Christianity. It took me decades before I could say the word Jesus. Decades.
Mm, mm,
But now that I see, the Jesus of Melody Land Christian Center, it was not the same Jesus of A Course in Miracles.
uh, uh,
No disrespect to Ralph Wilkerson. Well, maybe a little bit, but
yes, 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 yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
But it's perfect. Again, it's perfect because I get to speak to all those people who are pissed off, at the religions. I got to speak to the people who were molested by the priests. Someone's got to be the cleanup crew. I get to speak to them, but I do get to love them because when someone shows me their wounds, I can't love my own wound on a yoga mat or but I can love the wound in someone else,
Mm,
and it mirrors right back to me. That's the wounded healer. Show me your wounds so I can love myself, and both of us are going to rise above this
mm,
battleground.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
We didn't talk about this growing up. As a matter of fact, it was
Uh,
forbade. You come from
yeah.
the perfect family. All you need to do
Yeah.
is go to college, get a job, earn money,
Yeah.
and put food on the table for your family. End of story. Now stop talking here. Do you want another martini?
That's
Want a refill? We really are privileged to be alive at this time in history. My parents couldn't do this. How could they? Melody Land Christian Center, give me a break. They
Yeah.
didn't have the internet. My parents,
Yeah.
the best they did was perfect because it got me to this point in 2025 October where I get to talk to you on a Wednesday evening, and now we get to do this work. As difficult as it is, it's a privilege. You described the paradigm we all came from, and maybe it's important we talk about that here on the Zoom call. That's why I record these.
Yeah.
Um, until it took me years of study to realize the laws of cause and effect.
Mm.
We are taught, as a matter of fact, 99.8% of human beings believe the world is a cause and we're the effect.
Yeah.
How
Mm.
can we expect a parent to love a child based on that premise? They're teaching the child that the outside is the cause and they're the effect. Now, that takes the parents off the hook. It doesn't.
Mm.
It now we're you and I are the 0.2% that are upending cause and effect. We're the cause in the world's effect. That's the complete game changer for full responsibility. Full. And that's what Jesus is telling us. And that's why it takes 1,400 pages for him to get through to us the basic principle that we're creating everything. And it, it's the solution, but we are the very first forerunners to begin. I mean, we've had mystics away show its prophets throughout history, but now in this great awakening, we are the front lines of a huge wave to begin to make this correction, and it's simply a correction. And that's why every person, oh, I'm only doing a little bit here. No, you're not. That little, every single little, what you perceive to be a small little incremental movement is huge. I need to help people see it this way, that what we on this side of the veil perceive as small and incremental is ginormous.
Mm.
Because the world's just spinning. 98% of the world is just spinning around. Look what's happening. Political, environmental, social. It's going around and around and around like it has for thousands of years. But it's starting to go around faster and faster, which means people are getting thrown off that more and more. And this is the only thing that they're going to have to hold on to is a truth that we are now uh, fertilizing and propagating. It's the truth of cause and effect. But we all have to face what's inside of us, and that's what this work is. It's bringing darkness to the light. It's not even
Yeah.
bringing it to the light. It's bringing darkness up because the light just is. But we do have. This is what I tell people. I say I don't want to hear about your spirituality. Let's stop talking about spirituality. I'm more interested in honesty.
Mm-hmm.
What's taking place right now? Because the spirituality is just a given. It's just that it's been covered up with layers of fear. We're only here for one reason. It's to wake up, see that it's
Yeah.
you know, and until I really, well, I was living the script of the world. I was here for a career. I was here for investments. I was here to create solid ground. I just kept, I have a degree in architecture, and I should have figured it out right away. They taught us, in structures, you've got to have a solid foundation.
Uh-huh.
Put those piles down deep, or
Uh-huh.
concrete footings. Don't build your house
Uh-huh.
on sand. Ding dong. That's beautiful, Sue, because in the last remaining minutes, I really would like to speak to that at two levels. Number one, architecture. I'm thrilled we talk about architecture. I wish more people would, because that's what I, it's my whole path. But
Mm.
about honesty,
Mm-hmm.
because, and I will go into the story. I don't have a problem doing that. I grew up believing that the way I love, if you love me, you're not going to let the neighbors find out.
Right.
If you love me, and at no fault, no blame, the woman had an illness.
Right.
But for God's sakes, let's get some help here. No,
Right.
we're not going to get help here because somebody might find out about what's happening
and judge us. Mm-hmm.
And judge us. You see this old paradigm, and trust me, there's not a day that's gone by the last 20 years that I haven't grieved over that. She did eventually, get some sobriety, and got some help at Betty Ford. Eventually, it was after a very long bout with that old paradigm. So this is what we're unwinding. As a little boy, I was raised to keep secrets. Remember that woman who, I think she's gone now, but her name was Suzanne Summers. She starred in that. She was a big blonde from our generation, Three's Company.
Yeah.
She wrote a book in the either 80s called Keeping Secrets.
Ah.
And it was my first exposure. It was the 80s. We were all doing, we were all going in 12-step programs, John Bradshaw and that. But I realized then, the cost of keeping family secrets.
Yeah.
And so when you say build the house on rock, and I'm glad you're getting to that, and honesty can sting. Because we're going to have to start exposing some of this stuff, and the people who still believe, in maintaining a facade.
Yeah. We
may not be very popular. When we start to heal, it reflects very, these dysfunctional family systems, which have gone on for generations, can react in various ways. And I do like to speak to that often. It's not an ACIM topic, but once we start exposing these, it then lays the foundation for the metaphysics. So that brings it back to, foundation. We need to, these metaphysics cannot sit on those granite blocks you were talking about.
Yeah.
It had to sit on that glacial bedrock. Going back to the topic of this real talk.
Yeah.
You know what? This is what we came in with. And this is what we're alchemizing. And you know what? I want to continue alchemizing it. And if you could come on, next week, I really would like to continue this conversation. Okay. It's sort of like we're bringing in all that fundamental, like you said earlier, no accident. We started talking about foundations and architecture. You told me about a church, glacial deposits, and until this stuff is gently moved aside, this is the foundation for our metaphysical path.
Right.
I firmly believe that. But tonight it's an hour, and
yeah,
all I'm able to do. So this is to end the recording. This is Reverend Kenneth Price. I've been here with Susie Emmel for the last hour, and we've been just talking, casual talk. No real metaphysical direction. No specific. We got to heal this. But what came out of us was beautiful. I made discoveries, and I hope Susie made discoveries. And that's the reason I record these. Just what my ministry looks like. And I'm just thrilled. So if you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments below and join us at 5 p.m. Eastern time on, check out, I'll put it in the description line, my website. It's got the link to the Zoom room. So for the recording period, God bless, and may the force be with you.